I'm Rolene Marks. This is your date with your headlines from Israel right here on the Israel Brief every Monday to Thursday with me, and all of this is brought to you courtesy of Lay of the Lad. So let's take a look at the big stories making headlines, and Dafka, as we came off air yesterday, the results of the investigation into the ballistics of the bullet that killed Al Jazeera journalist Shireen Abu Akleh were released. So let's take a look at those findings. Yesterday, an independent forensic analysis of the bullet and its ballistics was conducted at the US Embassy in Jerusalem. Now, forensics experts have concluded their investigation and released their report saying that the bullet was far too damaged to draw any conclusive conclusions who was responsible for firing the fatal bullet that resulted in the death of Abu Akleh. However, in the US State Department's statement by spokesperson Ned Price, they said they believe it is likely, although through a tragic accident, that this could have come from the IDF. Israel has objected to that finding, saying that the only thing that is conclusive is that the results are in fact inconclusive and anything else is just pure speculation. The Palestinian Authority has rejected the report, demanding that the IDF be held accountable for the death of Abu Akleh. Israel's Defense Minister Benny Gantz released a statement shortly after, saying it was impossible to tell who was responsible for firing the shot, and as a result, the investigation by Israel and by the IDF will continue, and this was a sentiment echoed by the IDF Chief of Staff Aviv Kochavi. Meanwhile, the head of the Knesset's Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee has said that even though he hasn't examined the report himself, he believes, based on what has been made public, that there is a possibility that the wrong bullet may have been tested or investigated. What we can tell you is that many news services around the world have led with the accusation that the US believe that it is likely that the bullet was fired from the IDF, however, in a tragic circumstance. They neglect to mention that the most important findings is that it is absolutely inconclusive to confirm who fired the fatal shot. Another question Israelis are asking ourselves today: is there growing tension between Israel and Russia? Last night, Moscow issued its second condemnation of Israeli airstrikes in Syria in a matter of weeks. They called the latest airstrikes on Iranian targets in Syria unacceptable and a violation of Syrian sovereignty. I would like to venture a guess that maybe we could point officials in Moscow in the direction of Ukraine, and then we can have a real discussion about violation of sovereignty and unacceptable targeting of civilians and infrastructure. Just saying, just putting it out there. Russia does have a presence in Syria, and Israel has worked in cooperation with Russian military officials who are based in the country, because Syria is used as a launch site for the Iranians, either to transport weapons, get them to Hezbollah in Lebanon, or through to Hamas and other terror entities in the Gaza Strip, or launch their own attacks on Israeli sovereign territory. Talk about a violation of sovereign territory right there. Meanwhile, it was also announced earlier today, very, very worrying, or at least made public, that the Russians have asked the Jewish Agency for Israel to cease all operations in Russia. Now, the Jewish Agency is responsible for, among many things, Zionist education, as well as helping to facilitate Aliyah, that is the immigration of Jews from diaspora countries to the state of Israel. Some Jews questioned, who prefer to remain anonymous, say that they feel that another iron curtain is descending on their community in Russia, making it almost impossible for them to leave the country. Now, we don't know too many details, but we do know that the government will be responding to this. On the subject of the government, Prime Minister Yair Lapid has just moments ago landed in Paris. This trip was scheduled while the former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett was in office. And the Prime Minister is on his way currently to the Elysee Palace, where he will meet with French President Emmanuel Macron. Expected to be discussed is Iran and the Iranian threat, as well as Hezbollah. It is believed that Prime Minister Lapid will talk to the French President about the threat that Hezbollah serves, not just to Israel, but to the Lebanese people, and their numerous attempts on Israeli gas fields in the Mediterranean. Before he left, Prime Minister Lapid referred to President Macron and the French people as one of Israel's greatest allies. And Israel has welcomed 50 Cent, or 50, as some of you may call him. Yes, the internationally renowned rapper and superstar 50 Cent has arrived in Israel ahead of his 2 sold-out shows in Tel Aviv. 50 tweeted out that it was great to be back in Israel. And what can we say, 50? Other than you'll find us in the club, and shalom and welcome yet again to Israel. So that brings us to the end of today's top stories. Don't forget to check out our website at www.layoftheland.online, our Facebook community at Lawful Site. If you haven't already joined us, give us a like, give us a follow, share our content, help us get past those pesky censors. And if you're on YouTube and you're viewing us there, our channel is at the Israel Brief, the Israel Brief. If you're watching us, please consider clicking on that red subscribe button, and don't forget to share and like as well. And we're on Twitter, where all good twits are, at Lay of the Land 5. Follow us there and interact with us. We love it when you do. And while I get a little bit more cool because of the hot Israeli summer, I want to wish you all a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to join me again tomorrow for your top stories right here on the Israel Brief. I'm Rolene Marks. This is the Israel Brief, and we'll meet again tomorrow.